The morning sun painted the sky in soft pink and gold as Jenny woke up in her childhood bedroom for the last time as a single woman. She had barely slept, but it wasn't nerves keeping her awake. It was pure excitement. Today was the day she would marry Alex, the man who had stolen her heart 6 years ago in the most unexpected way. Jenny stretched and smiled, remembering how they first met. She was rushing to her anatomy class, already running late with her arms full of medical textbooks when she literally crashed into Alex outside the library. Her books went flying everywhere, and she was mortified. But Alex didn't just help her pick up the books. He noticed one was about cardiology and started asking her genuine questions about her studies. Most guys her age glazed over when she mentioned medical school, but Alex was different. He was fascinated by her passion for helping people. That chance encounter led to coffee, which led to study dates, which led to Alex waiting for her after every late-night shift at the hospital where she did her rotations. He never complained about her crazy schedule or the fact that she sometimes fell asleep during movies after 18-hour days. Instead, he learned to make her favorite soup for when she came home exhausted, and he always had a warm blanket ready now. 6 years later, Jenny was about to become Mrs. Thompson. She could hear her mother bustling around downstairs, probably triple-checking every detail for the 100th time. Her mom had been planning this wedding almost as eagerly as Jenny herself. The smell of fresh coffee drifted up the stairs, mixed with the sweet scent of the flowers that had arrived. Yesterday, Jenny's phone buzzed with a text from Alex. Even though tradition said they shouldn't see each other before the ceremony, they had agreed they could still send good morning messages. Can't wait to see you walking down that aisle today. I love you more than all the stars in the sky, his message read. Jenny grinned and quickly typed back, just a few more hours until I'm officially stuck with you forever. Downstairs, the house was buzzing with activity. Jenny's Aunt Lisa had arrived early to help with hair and makeup, along with Jenny's best friend Rachel, who had been her roommate all through college. Rachel was the one who had encouraged Jenny to give Alex a real chance after that first coffee date. He looks at you like you hung the moon, Rachel had said back then. And she was right. The three women spent the morning in Jenny's childhood bedroom, which had been transformed into a beauty salon for the day. Rachel carefully painted Jenny's nails a soft pink while Aunt Lisa worked on curling her hair into the perfect style. We chatted and laughed, sharing stories about Jenny and Alex's relationship over the years. Remember when Alex drove 4 hours in a snowstorm just to bring you chicken soup when you had the flu? Rachel reminded her, shaking her head with a smile. I knew right then he was a keeper. Jenny's mom poked her head in every few minutes, each time with a new detail to confirm. The flowers look perfect at the chapel, she announced during one visit. And your father is already there making sure everything is set up exactly right. Jenny's dad had been surprisingly emotional about the whole wedding. Just last week, he had teared up while they were practicing walking down the aisle together. By noon, Jenny was ready to put on her dress. It had belonged to her grandmother, a beautiful ivory gown with delicate lace sleeves and tiny pearl buttons down the back. Her grandmother had worn it in 1952, and it had been carefully preserved all these years. Jenny's mom had it altered to fit perfectly. They kept all the original details that made it special, as Rachel and Aunt Lisa helped her into the dress. Jenny felt a wave of emotion. Her grandmother had passed away 2 years ago, but Jenny knew she would be there in spirit today. The dress still smelled faintly of her grandmother's favorite lavender perfume, and wearing it felt like getting a hug from her. You look absolutely beautiful, her mom whispered, tears forming in her eyes as she fastened the pearl necklace that had also been her grandmother's. Alex is going to be speechless when he sees you. The chapel was only a 15-minute drive from Jenny's family home, but they left early to make sure they had plenty of time. Jenny rode with her mom and Rachel, while her dad went ahead to handle some last-minute details with the photographer. The photographer, Mrs. Peterson, had been taking pictures at weddings in their small town for over 20 years. She had actually photographed Jenny's parents' wedding, which made it even more special. When they arrived at Riverside Chapel, Jenny was amazed at how beautiful everything looked. The old stone building was decorated with white roses and baby's breath, exactly like she had dreamed. Alex had wanted to help with the decorating, but Jenny's mom had insisted that was bad luck. So instead, he had focused on writing his vows. Spending weeks perfecting every word inside the chapel's small preparation room, Jenny could hear the guests arriving. She peeked out the window and saw Alex's parents walking in, dressed in their finest clothes. His mom was wearing the blue dress they had picked out together last month, and his dad had actually agreed to wear a tie, which was saying something. For a man who usually lived in work shirts and jeans, Alex's younger sister, Katie, arrived with her husband and their 2 small children, who would be the ring bearer and flower girl. Jenny watched as 3-year-old Sophie practiced scattering rose petals while 5-year-old Tommy proudly carried the ring pillow. They had been so excited about their special jobs in the wedding. More and more familiar faces appeared outside the chapel. Jenny's college friends, her co-workers from the hospital, Alex's buddies from his engineering job, and neighbors who had watched Jenny grow up. The small chapel was filling up with everyone who mattered most to them. At exactly 2:30, the music began. Jenny's heart started racing with excitement rather than nerves. This was really happening. After 6 years of dating, 2 years of engagement, and months of planning, she was about to marry her best friend. Her dad appeared at the door of the preparation room, looking handsome in his best suit. "Ready, sweetheart?" He asked, offering. His arm, Jenny took one last look in the mirror, adjusted her grandmother's pearl necklace, and nodded. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life," she said. They walked to the back of the chapel, where Jenny could see Alex standing at the altar. Even from a distance, she could see him smile when the music changed to the wedding march. He was wearing the navy blue suit they had picked out together, with a white rose boutonniere that matched her bouquet. As the chapel doors opened and Jenny began walking down the aisle on her father's arm, she felt like she was floating. Every face in the congregation was smiling. But she only had eyes for Alex. He was wiping away tears. His smile was so big it looked like it might split his face in half. Halfway down the aisle, Jenny caught Alex's eye and gave him a little wink. He laughed and shook his head, probably thinking about how she always found ways to make him smile, even in the most serious moments. That was just who they were together, best friends, who could find joy in anything as long as they had each other. The ceremony was everything they had hoped for and more. Simple, heartfelt, and surrounded by the people who loved them most. The ceremony had been perfect. Jenny and Alex exchanged vows that made everyone cry happy tears, including themselves. When the minister finally said those magical words, "You may kiss the bride," Alex lifted Jenny's veil with shaking hands and kissed her like it was the first time all over again. The whole chapel erupted in cheers and applause. As they walked back down the aisle, as husband and wife, Jenny felt like she was walking on clouds. She squeezed Alex's hand tight, and he squeezed back even tighter. They had done it. They were officially married. All those years of dating, all the late nights studying while he waited for her, all the times they had talked about their future together, it had all led to this perfect moment. Outside the chapel, the guests threw rice and flower petals as the photographer snapped picture after picture. Jenny's dress sparkled in the afternoon sunlight, and Alex couldn't stop grinning. His cheeks were starting to hurt from smiling so much, but he didn't care. This was the happiest day of his life. "Okay, everyone," called out Mrs. Peterson, the photographer. "Let's get some family photos before you head to the reception." They spent the next 20 minutes taking pictures with both families. Jenny's parents stood proudly beside the newlyweds, her mother still dabbing at her eyes with tissues. Alex's parents beamed with joy, his father actually getting emotional for the first time anyone could remember. The whole wedding party gathered around them, everyone laughing and joking as Mrs. Peterson directed them into different poses. "Now just the bride and groom," she called out, and everyone stepped back to give them space. Alex pulled Jenny close, and she leaned into him, feeling completely content. They were going to have these photos forever, capturing this perfect moment when everything in the world felt right. After the photos, the wedding party started gathering near the limousine that would take them to Grandview Manor for the reception. The historic mansion was only about 10 minutes away, and Jenny's parents had rented it for the entire evening. They had seen it decorated yesterday during the rehearsal, and it looked like something from a fairy tale with white lights strung everywhere and elegant table settings. But as everyone moved toward the limousine, Alex caught Jenny's hand and pulled her aside. His eyes were twinkling with mischief, the way they always did when he had a surprise planned. "What are you up to?" Jenny asked, knowing that look well after 6 years together. "I have something to show you," Alex said, practically, bouncing with excitement. "Stay right here and close your eyes." Jenny laughed and covered her eyes with her hands, though she peeked a little through her fingers. She could hear Alex's footsteps moving away, then the sound of a car door opening. When she heard an engine start up, she was completely confused. "Okay, you can look now," Alex called out. Jenny opened her eyes and gasped. There, parked beside the chapel, was the most beautiful car she had ever seen. It was a bright red 1967 Mustang convertible, polished until it gleamed like a mirror. White ribbons and flowers were tied to the mirrors, and "Just Married" was written. Across the back window in elegant script, "Alex," she squealed. "Whose car is this? It's gorgeous." Alex walked over to her, holding up a set of keys and grinning like a little boy on Christmas morning. "It's ours. Well, mine. But now that we're married, I guess everything is ours, right?" Jenny's mouth fell open. "You bought this? When? How?" "Remember all those evenings I said I was working late at the engineering firm?" Alex said, looking slightly guilty, but mostly proud. "Well, I was working late some of those times. But other nights, I was in my buddy Tom's garage, fixing up this beauty. I bought her 3 months ago from an old man who couldn't drive anymore. She needed a lot of work. But Tom helped me get her running like new." Jenny walked around the car, running her hand along the smooth paint. It was absolutely beautiful. The red paint sparkled in the sunlight, and the white leather seats looked brand new. The chrome bumpers reflected her face, and she could see herself and Alex in the side mirror, both of them grinning like crazy. "I wanted our first ride as a married couple to be special," Alex continued. "I thought we could drive to the reception in style, just the two of us. What do you say, Mrs. Thompson?" Hearing her new name made Jenny's heart skip a beat. Mrs. Thompson. She was Mrs. Thompson now. She threw her arms around Alex's neck and kissed him hard. "I say yes to everything when it comes to you," she whispered against his lips. The wedding party had noticed the car by now, and everyone was gathering around to admire it. Rachel shook her head in amazement. "I can't believe you kept this secret for 3 months, she said to Alex. Jenny usually figures out her surprises way before you give them to her. "Hey," Jenny protested. "I'm not that bad at letting people surprise me. Remember last Christmas when you found your present hidden in the closet 2 weeks early?" Alex teased. "That was an accident. I was looking for my winter boots." Everyone laughed, and Jenny's mom came over to examine the car more closely. Looked a little worried as she took in Jenny's elaborate wedding dress. "Sweetheart, are you sure you want to ride in this with your grandmother's dress? It's such a beautiful gown, and convertibles can be windy. ... Jenny looked down at her dress, then back at the car. She had to admit it might be a little tricky getting in and out gracefully. The dress had a long train and those delicate lace sleeves. But looking at Alex's face, seeing how proud and excited he was about his surprise, she knew there was no way she was riding in that limousine. "Mom, it'll be fine," Jenny said, though she wasn't entirely sure how she was going to manage. Alex and I will figure it out. This is too perfect to pass up." Rachel stepped forward with a helpful smile. "Here, let me help you with the train. I can bustle it up a little so it won't drag on the ground." She and Jenny's mom worked together to gather up the back of the dress and pin it so it wouldn't get caught in the car door or drag on the pavement. It wasn't the most elegant solution, but it would work. Alex opened the passenger door with a flourish and bowed deeply. "Your chariot awaits, my lady." Jenny giggled and carefully climbed into the car with Alex and Rachel helping to arrange her dress so it wouldn't wrinkle too badly. The white leather seats were surprisingly comfortable, and she felt like a movie star from the 1960s sitting in such a classic car. Alex hurried around to the driver's side and slid behind the wheel. He had been practicing driving the Mustang for weeks, wanting to make sure he could handle it smoothly on their wedding day. The engine purred to life, a deep, satisfying rumble that made Jenny smile even wider. "We'll see you all at the reception." Alex called out to their wedding party, who were loading into the limousine. "Don't start the party without us." Jenny waved to everyone as Alex carefully pulled away from the chapel. The wind caught her veil and made it flutter behind them like a white flag. She felt absolutely magical, like they were driving off into their own personal fairy tale. The country road to Grandview Manor wound through beautiful farmland and forests. Jenny had driven this route hundreds of times growing up, but today it felt completely new and exciting. Everything looked different. When you were sitting in a classic convertible next to the man you just married. As Alex and Jenny drove away from the chapel in the beautiful red Mustang, they felt like they were living in a dream. The afternoon sun was perfect, not too hot and not too cold. Jenny's veil fluttered in the gentle breeze, and she couldn't stop smiling. This was exactly how she had always imagined her wedding day would feel. "I still can't believe you kept this secret for so long," Jenny said, running her hand along the dashboard. Everything in the car looked brand new, from the white leather seats to the chrome details that sparkled in the sunlight. Alex grinned and reached over to squeeze her hand. "It was the hardest secret I've ever kept. Do you remember that night last month when you asked me why I smelled like motor oil?" Jenny laughed. "You told me you had been helping your neighbor fix his lawnmower. Well, technically, I wasn't lying. Tom is my neighbor, and we were fixing an engine. I just didn't mention it was a car engine." They drove slowly down the winding country road, taking their time to enjoy this special moment together. There was no rush. The reception wasn't supposed to start for another hour, and they wanted to savor every minute of this ride. Their first journey, as husband and wife, it felt magical. What they didn't know was that Alex's surprise had a hidden problem. When he bought the Mustang from the elderly man 3 months ago, it had been sitting in a garage for over 15 years. The previous owner, Mr. Williams, was a sweet old gentleman who had loved the car, but couldn't drive anymore because of his failing eyesight. Alex had spent countless evenings working on the car with his friend Tom, who knew a lot about fixing old vehicles. They had replaced the engine parts, fixed the brakes, painted the body, and reupholstered the seats. The car looked absolutely perfect. It ran smoothly during all their test drives around Tom's neighborhood. But there was one part they had replaced that neither Alex nor Tom knew much about. The original fuel tank had been rusty and needed to be changed. Instead of buying an expensive original part from a classic car dealer, Alex had found what looked like the exact same tank online for half the price. The seller said it was a perfect reproduction. It's made to look and work exactly like the original 1967 part. Alex had been so excited about saving money that he could put toward their honeymoon. Every dollar counted when you were just starting your married life together. The reproduction tank looked identical to the original, and it fit perfectly when they installed it. During their test drives, everything seemed fine. What Alex didn't know was that the company that made this reproduction tank had cut corners to keep their prices low. They used cheaper materials and a different mounting system than the original Ford parts. The tank looked right on the outside, but inside, it was built very differently. Over the past month, as Alex had been driving the car to make sure everything worked perfectly, small vibrations from the engine had been slowly loosening the connections. That held the fuel tank in place. It was happening so gradually that no one could notice it. The tank still looked secure. The car still ran beautifully. The company that made these cheap reproduction tanks knew they had problems. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, they had quietly sent out recall notices to customers who had bought these particular tanks. But Alex had purchased his tank from a private seller online, not directly from the company. The recall notice never reached him. 3 other people in different states had already had accidents because of these faulty tanks. 2 of them had been seriously injured when their fuel tanks came loose while driving. The 3rd accident had been even worse. But the company was trying to handle everything quietly, without much publicity, hoping to avoid a big lawsuit. As Jenny and Alex drove down the peaceful country road, laughing and talking about their future together, they had no idea that their beautiful classic car was carrying this hidden danger. The fuel tank was held in place by connections that were getting weaker with every mile they drove. "Tell me again about how you and Tom figured out how to fix the engine," Jenny said, genuinely interested in the work Alex had put into the car. She loved hearing him talk about projects he was passionate about. Alex launched into the story of how they had spent weeks figuring out why the engine wouldn't start properly. The previous owner, Mr. Williams, told me the car had been running fine when he parked it 15 years ago. But you know how it is with old cars that sit for too long. Everything starts to break down. Explained how they had to replace spark plugs, clean out the carburetor, and change all the fluids. The hardest part was finding the right parts. Some of them you can only get from specialty shops that deal with classic cars, and those parts cost a fortune. But you made it work, Jenny said proudly. I'm so impressed that you learned how to do all this just to surprise me. Tom did most of the hard work, Alex said modestly. I mainly just handed him tools and tried not to get in the way. But I did learn a lot. Maybe we can work on cars together as a hobby. Wouldn't that be fun? Jenny laughed. I don't know much about cars, but I'm willing to learn. As long as you don't mind me asking a million questions about everything. They were driving through a particularly beautiful stretch of road now, with tall trees on both sides creating a green canopy overhead. The dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves made everything look like a painting. Jenny felt like she was in a movie, driving through this gorgeous scenery in a classic car with her new husband. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out this is all a dream, she said softly. Alex glanced over at her, and his heart nearly stopped at how beautiful she looked. The wind had blown a few strands of hair loose from her wedding hairstyle, and her cheeks were pink with happiness. Her grandmother's lace dress looked perfect against the white leather seats, and the afternoon sunlight made her skin glow. If it's a dream, I don't ever want to wake up, he said. Behind them, about a mile back, the wedding party was following in the limousine. Rachel was looking out the window, trying to catch glimpses of the red Mustang ahead of them. I still can't believe Alex kept that car a secret, she said to Jenny's parents who were riding with them. He's usually terrible at keeping surprises. Jenny's mom was smiling, but she still looked a little worried. I hope Jenny's dress doesn't get too wrinkled in that convertible, and I hope they drive carefully. That's a powerful car for someone who's not used to driving classic vehicles. Alex is a good driver, Jenny's dad assured her. And he's been practicing with that car for weeks. Tom told me he's seen Alex driving it around the neighborhood, taking it slow and being very careful. None of them could see the red Mustang anymore because of the winding road, but they weren't worried. They expected to see Alex and Jenny at the reception venue in just a few more minutes. In the Mustang, Alex was pointing out landmarks to Jenny as they drove. See that old barn over there? I used to ride my bike out here when I was a kid. That creek runs all the way behind your parents' house. Jenny loved hearing these stories about Alex's childhood. Even after 6 years together, he still found new things to tell her about his life growing up in their small town. She was looking forward to a lifetime of learning new things about each other. The road ahead curved gently to the left, following the path of the creek that Alex had just pointed out. It was a curve they had both driven hundreds of times before. Nothing dangerous or unusual about it. But as Alex gently turned the steering wheel to follow the curve, something shifted underneath. Their car. The first sign that something was wrong came as a strange smell. Jenny wrinkled her nose and looked around, confused. It smelled like gasoline, but much stronger than the usual car exhaust they sometimes noticed on busy roads. Alex, do you smell that? She asked, turning to look at her new husband. Alex was concentrating on the gentle curve in the road, but he nodded. Yeah, I smell it too. Maybe there's a gas station nearby. He glanced around, but they were still in the middle of the countryside, surrounded by trees and farmland. No gas stations in sight. The smell was getting stronger by the second. Jenny felt a flutter of worry in her stomach, the first negative emotion she had felt all day. It's really strong, Alex. Should we pull over? Before Alex could answer, they both heard a sound that made their hearts skip a beat. It was a loud clang, like something metal had fallen and hit the road behind them. Alex immediately slowed down and checked his mirrors, but he couldn't see anything wrong. What was that? Jenny asked, her voice tight with concern. I don't know, Alex said, pulling the car over to the side of the road. Let me get out and check. Out. As soon as Alex opened his door, the smell of gasoline hit them like a wall. It was overwhelming, making both of them cough. Jenny's eyes started watering from the fumes. "Alex, something's really wrong," Jenny said, her voice shaking now. "Need to get out of the car?" Alex was already stepping out, and when he looked underneath the Mustang, his face went white as a sheet. Gasoline was pouring out from under the car, forming a growing puddle on the asphalt. The beautiful red paint that he had worked so hard, too perfect, was now reflecting a dark, dangerous liquid that was spreading faster than he could process. "Jenny, get out of the car right now," Alex shouted, his voice filled with panic. "Don't touch anything metal. Just get out." Jenny didn't hesitate. She could hear the fear in Alex's voice, and she trusted him completely. She tried to get out quickly, but her grandmother's wedding dress made it difficult. Train got tangled around her legs, and the delicate lace caught on the car door handle. "Alex, help me," she called out, struggling with the dress. The gasoline smell was so strong now that she felt dizzy and nauseous. Her heart was pounding with fear, but she was trying not to panic. Alex rushed to her side of the car, his hands shaking as he tried to help untangle her dress from the door. The fabric was caught on several places, and in his panic, he was being too rough with the delicate lace. "Hush, it's okay," he kept repeating, though his voice betrayed how scared he was. "We just need to get you out of here." About half a mile back, Rachel was the first person in the limousine to notice something was wrong. She had been watching for the red Mustang around each curve, expecting to catch glimpses of it ahead of them. But suddenly, she couldn't see it. "Anymore? They should be right ahead of us," she said to Jenny's parents, who were sitting across from her in the limo. "I can't see them anywhere." Jenny's dad leaned forward to look out the front window. "Maybe they stopped to take pictures somewhere. You know how newlyweds are." But Jenny's mom was already feeling uneasy. "We should have insisted they ride with us," she said, wringing her hands. "I had a bad feeling about that old car." The limousine driver, who had been driving wedding parties for over 20 years, decided to speed up a little. He had learned to trust his instincts, and something felt off about losing sight of the couple they were supposed to be following. Back at the Mustang, Alex had finally managed to free Jenny's dress from the car door. They both stumbled away from the vehicle, holding hands tight. The gasoline was still pouring out from underneath, and the puddle was getting bigger and bigger. "What happened?" Jenny asked, looking back at the car that had been so beautiful just minutes before. Now it looked dangerous and scary, sitting in the middle of a growing pool of fuel. "I think the gas tank came loose," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. He was staring at the car in shock, unable to believe what was happening. This was supposed to be the perfect surprise, the perfect start to their married life.
Oh.
Now it was turning into a nightmare.
Oh.
"We need to call for help," Jenny said, trying to stay calm. She pulled out her phone, but her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it. Alex was about to answer, and they both heard the sound of an engine coming around the curve behind them. Their hearts lifted with hope. Maybe it was the wedding party coming to help them. But it wasn't the limousine. It was a pickup truck, driven by a local farmer who was heading home after checking on his cattle. The farmer, an older man named Bill, who had lived in the area his whole life, immediately saw the situation and pulled over. "You folks need help?" he called out, getting out of his truck. Then he saw the gasoline pooling around the red car, and his expression turned serious. "Holy cow, that's a lot of gas. You two need to get further away from that car right now." "The gas tank fell off," Alex explained, his voice cracking with emotion. "It was supposed to be perfect. Today was supposed to be perfect." Bill looked at the young couple, Alex in his wedding suit and Jenny in her beautiful wedding dress, and his heart went out to them. He could see this was their wedding day, and something terrible had gone wrong. "Son, accidents happen," Bill said gently. "The important thing is that you're both safe. That's all that matters." But even as he said it, Bill was worried. He had been around farm equipment and vehicles his whole life, and he knew how dangerous gasoline leaks could be. One spark from anything, a car driving by, someone's phone, it's even static electricity, and the whole area could go up in flames. "We need to call the fire department," Bill said, pulling out his own phone. "And we need to get you to even further away from that car." Jenny was crying now, not from physical pain, but from watching their perfect day fall apart. The dress that her grandmother had worn, the car that Alex had worked so hard to restore, their dreams of a romantic drive to their reception, it was all ruined. Alex put his arms around her, holding her close. "I'm so sorry, Jenny. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "It's not your fault," Jenny said through her tears. "You couldn't have known this would happen." Behind them, the limousine finally came around the curve. Rachel saw the scene first. The red Mustang surrounded by dark liquid, Jenny and Alex standing beside the road with an old farmer, and she knew immediately that something was very wrong. "Stop the car," she shouted to the driver. "Something's happened to Jenny and Alex." Limousine pulled over, and everyone piled out. Jenny's parents ran toward their daughter, while Alex's family hurried to check on him. The wedding party, who had been laughing and celebrating just minutes before, suddenly found themselves in the middle of an emergency. "Everyone stay back," Bill shouted, waving his arms. "That's gasoline everywhere. We need to keep our distance until the fire department gets here." Jenny's mom reached her daughter and wrapped her in a hug. "Careful not to get too close to the dangerous car." "Are you hurt? You okay?" "We're okay, Mom," Jenny said, though she was still shaking. "We smelled gas and got out just in time." As they all stood there watching gasoline continue to leak from the beautiful car that was supposed to carry the newlyweds to their reception, nobody noticed the small spark that was beginning to form near the car's electrical system. What happened next changed everything in an instant. The small electrical spark that had been building near the Mustang's damaged wiring finally found the gasoline vapors that had been spreading through the air. In a split second, there was a flash of light and a sound like thunder. The explosion knocked everyone backward. Bill, the farmer who had stopped to help, immediately started shouting for everyone to get further away. The beautiful red Mustang that Alex had spent months restoring was now completely engulfed in flames. The heat was so intense that they could feel it from 50 feet away. Jenny collapsed to her knees, not from injury but from shock. Everything they had dreamed about was burning right in front of them. Alex knelt beside her, pulling her close. As they both stared at the inferno that had been their special surprise just minutes earlier, "Is everyone okay?" Bill yelled over the roar of the flames. "Is anyone hurt?" Miraculously, everyone was safe. They had all gotten far enough away from the car just in time, but emotionally, the damage was devastating. This was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives. And now they were watching their dreams literally go up in smoke. The fire department arrived within 10 minutes, but there was nothing they could do to save the car. They focused on making sure the fire didn't spread to the nearby trees and keeping everyone safe. The police came too, along with an ambulance, even though nobody was physically injured, as the firefighters worked to put out the blaze. The wedding party stood together in stunned silence. Rachel had her arm around Jenny, while Alex's best friend, Tom, the same Tom who had helped restore the car, looked like he was going to be sick. "This can't be happening," Tom kept saying. "We checked everything. We were so careful." Jenny's parents were holding each other tight, grateful that their daughter and new son-in-law were alive, but heartbroken watching them deal with this tragedy on their wedding day. Jenny's mom kept thinking about how worried she had been about the car, wishing she had insisted more strongly that they take the limousine. The fire chief, Captain Rodriguez, came over to talk to Alex and Jenny once the flames were out. He was a kind man who had seen many accidents over his 20-year career, but this one hit him especially hard because it was clearly a young couple's wedding day. "I'm so sorry this happened to you folks," he said gently. "Can you tell me what? You remember about the moments before the fire started?" Alex explained about the smell of gasoline and the sound they had heard, how they had gotten out of the car just in time. Captain Rodriguez nodded and took notes, but Alex could tell from his expression that the news wasn't good. "What caused it?" "It?" Alex asked, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. Captain Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. "It appears the fuel tank became disconnected from its mounting system. When that happened, gasoline spilled all over the road and created vapors. Eventually, those vapors found an ignition source, probably from the car's electrical system." "But how is that possible?" Tom asked, stepping forward. "We installed that tank ourselves just a few months ago. It was brand new." The fire chief pulled out his phone and showed them a photo he had taken of the car's remains. Even though it was burned and twisted, you could still see parts of the fuel tank lying beside the road. Was this a reproduction part? Captain Rodriguez asked. Because if it was, we've seen this exact same problem before. Ah. Tom's face went white. Yeah, it was a reproduction. We bought it online because the original Ford parts were so expensive. Captain Rodriguez nodded grimly. There's been a recall on certain reproduction fuel tanks. The company that makes them used substandard mounting hardware. We've responded to 3 other incidents just like this one in the past 6 months. The weight of those words hit everyone like a physical blow. This accident could have been prevented. If Alex had known about the recall, if they had bought the original part, they had just taken the limousine like everyone else. There were so many what-ifs that it was overwhelming. Jenny finally spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. Are we going to be okay? Legally, I mean? Could we get in trouble for this? No. No, Captain Rodriguez assured her quickly. This wasn't your fault. The company that made that tank is going to have a lot of explaining to do. In fact, I need to make some phone calls about this. You might want to contact a lawyer because you're definitely not the only people this has happened to. Over the next hour, as they waited for the road to be cleared and the investigation to be completed, the wedding party tried to figure out what to do next. The reception was supposed to start in 30 minutes, but none of them felt like celebrating. Anymore, we should cancel everything, Jenny said sadly. How can we have a party after this? But Rachel shook her head firmly. Jenny, look around you. Look at all these people who love you and Alex. Everyone is here. Everyone is safe, and you two are married. Ow. Jenny's grandmother's dress was dirty from kneeling on the road. Both she and Alex smelled like smoke, but Rachel was right. They were alive, they were married, and their families and friends had traveled from all over to celebrate with them. Alex's parents, who had been quiet during most of the crisis, finally spoke up. His mother, normally a very practical woman, surprised everyone with what she said. Your grandfather would have said that surviving something like this together is a good sign for a marriage, she told Alex and Jenny. He always said that couples who can handle a crisis on their wedding day can handle anything life throws at them. Slowly, the idea of continuing with the reception started to seem possible. Jenny looked at Alex, and even though they were both shaken and disappointed, she could see that same love in his eyes that had been there when they exchanged vows just a few hours earlier. What do you think? She asked him. You want to go to our reception? Alex managed a small smile, his first since the accident. I want to go wherever you go, Mrs. Thompson. That hasn't changed. So they did go to the reception, arriving in the limousine instead of the classic car they had planned. When they walked into Grandview Manor, the guests who had been waiting there gave them the longest, as the loudest round of applause any of them had ever heard. The story of what happened spread quickly through the reception. And instead of being a celebration, dampened by tragedy, it became something even more special. People talked about how grateful they were that Alex and Jenny were safe, how much they loved each other, and how this experience had reminded everyone not to take anything for granted. During his toast, Alex's father said something that made everyone cry happy tears instead of sad ones. Today we learned that the most important thing about a marriage isn't the car you drive or the dress you wear or the perfect plans you make. It's about having someone who will hold your hand when everything goes wrong. 6 months later, Alex and Jenny received a letter from a lawyer, presenting several other families who had been affected by the faulty reproduction fuel tanks. The company ended up paying millions of dollars in settlements and was forced to recall all of their tank products. Alex and Jenny used their settlement money to start a scholarship fund for young people studying automotive safety engineering. They wanted to make sure that other couples wouldn't have to go through what they experienced on their wedding day. They never did get another classic car, but they didn't mind. Every time they drove past the spot where the accident happened, they held hands a little tighter and remembered how lucky they were to have each other. Sometimes the best love stories aren't about perfect moments, but about surviving imperfect ones together.